Okay, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Boris Herzl. I am the program manager for the Guam APEX Accelerator. This slide tells you a little bit about what we do. We provide one-on-one counseling as well as group workshops and webinars for anybody that's going after a government contract. So if you're going after a local GovGuam contract or a federal contract, we are here to assist you. We don't assist with private sector contracts. We are funded by a grant from the Department of War, and the University of Guam hosts our program. So our offices are located at UOG inside the School of Business and Public Administration. I'm in room 117, and Victoria, our procurement counselor, is in room 116. Some of the highlights of our on the screen here, we have over 700 active clients. There's over 2,000 clients in our database, but any given time, 700 plus are actively looking for contracts. We've helped a bunch of clients get HubZone certified, which is one of the small business certifications we can assist with. And our clients in FY25 won over $600 million in government contracts and subcontracts. Some of the resource partners that we work with, we are part of the National Apex Accelerator Alliance, known as NAPEX. And so we are just one office of 90 plus Apex Accelerator offices across the nation. And so we have this alliance we can go to find out what's going on with the latest and greatest in usually federal contracting, and then share that information with our clients. We also work quite a bit with the small business development centers. Those are great for anybody who is starting a business or expanding their business, needs some help with obviously business development type things like putting a business plan together, getting some QuickBooks training, help with your business plan again to take it to a bank so you can get a loan or a line of credit. Those are all business development related things. Please go see your local SBDC to help with that. We work with the Guam SBDC and also the CNMI SBDC as well. We do not assist with business development training. So if you ask us like, hey, how should I structure should I do a corporation, should an LLC? We're going to say, you know what, go talk to the SBDC. We don't handle that. So we strictly focus on government contracting. Um, the SBA we work with quite a bit. They fund the SBDCs, by the way. But the SBA has a bunch of small business certifications you can get. The 8A, woman-owned, service-able veteran, hub zone. So if you want to get those certifications, we can help you with that. Also, if you want to get involved in SBA's mentor protege program, or usually a small business protege teams up with a largest business mentor, we can help you with that process as well. And going back to the types of assistance we provide, starts from the very beginning. We'll sit down with you, find out what products and services you're selling. We'll figure out which government agencies are buying those products and services. In Guam, it's usually pretty simple. It's Department of War. About 99.9% of all the federal contracting in Guam happens through that federal agency. And so we'll try to figure out which, I guess, sub agencies of the DOW are purchasing those products and services. And then we'll get you registered in SAM. You need to be registered in SAM, the System for Award Management, to be a federal contractor. And then once that all is done, we can help you find opportunities. Those are also located in SAM, and we do a whole webinar on that. So if you've missed that webinar, you can go to our YouTube channel and watch it there. Just type Guam Apex in YouTube, and it'll pop up. All our videos are there. And then once you find something you're interested in, you want to either submit a proposal or a quote, depending on what type of solicitation it is. If it's an RFP, request for proposal, or an RFQ, request for quote, we can help you with that. We can help you review the solicitation. We can help you with your proposal and your quote. Obviously, we can't write everything for you and we can't price it for you, but we can give you tips and suggestions. Put this in, take this out, that kind of thing. So, and then win or lose, we can help you with the debrief process on more complex solicitations like construction type or large service contracts. A debrief actually be a PowerPoint presentation where they tell you the strengths and weaknesses of your proposal. And of course, you always want to know that so you can do better the next time. And some people think, oh, well, I won, so I don't need to know. Well, maybe you won, but you did have a weakness. You'd probably want to know what that weakness is. And so, win or lose, I would always suggest getting a debrief. So even though debriefs are available to you, you do need to ask for them, and there is a way to do that, and we can show you how to do that. So start to finish of the procurement process, we are here to assist. Um, Here is our contact information. My computer works with me today. So there's our name, email address, phone number. We have our website, guamapex.com. So if you know anybody else who wants to get into government contracting, please direct them to our website. Sign up as a client. There's a button on the top right, I believe. Click that button. That puts you in our database and also on our email list. So you can stay up to date. We send out a weekly email basically every Friday discussing things related to government contracting. We also have our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, so please follow those pages, like and subscribe to those. And then, of course, like I said, our YouTube channel where this will be posted as well. And we always update our videos on our YouTube channel. We're probably the opposite of all YouTubers. We delete the old videos and make sure the only videos that are there are the newest updated ones. So again, just type Guam Apex in YouTube and click on videos, and you'll be able to see all our recorded webinars there. If you have any questions as we go through our webinar today, please feel free to type them in the chat, or you can wait till the end and we'll have time for questions as well. And one more thing about our services are always free of charge. There's no cost to you. Like I said, we are funded by a grant from the Department of War to do this. So please take advantage. Please take advantage of us. Don't get to hear that very often, huh? All right, let's get started here. So today we're going to talk about how to respond to an RFP or a request for proposal. So first off, what is an RFP? What is a request for proposal? Well, the FAR, which is the Federal Acquisition Regulations, basically the procurement Bible of the federal government, defines request for proposals as they're something used in negotiated acquisitions to communicate requirements to prospective contractors and solicit proposals. All that means is it's a way for the government when they're trying to purchase something to tell the buyers, this is what we're trying to purchase and this is how you should respond. That's basically what it is. So it's used in competitive acquisition. So it's not used like if they're going to go into Home Depot and buy something, right? They're just going to buy that outright. They don't have to put an RFP together. But if they're looking for a landscaper and they're not sure how many landscapers are out there, and if they're small businesses or large businesses, or are there some that are Hub Zone certified? Are there some that are woman-owned certified? That's a competitive type acquisition. That's something they'll put out an RFP for, and they'll want a proposal, from them about how you do your landscaping. So we'll talk more about that as we go through this here. But basically, the RFP that's released from the government has to have some basic information in it. And the FAR says it needs to basically tell you, the potential vendor, what's the government's requirement? What are they looking for? Right? So in the landscaping example, it has to say, okay, we're looking for landscaping services, but it's got to be a little more detailed than that. It's got to say, okay, what kind of landscaping services? When do you need these? Where do you need them? How often do you need them? That kind of thing. And so it gets pretty detailed in a lot of these RFPs. And we're going to go through an actual RFP so you can see how all this works. So they're going to list in the RFP the terms and conditions that will apply to the contract. So should you win this contract, there are certain rules and regulations, also known as FAR clauses, that need to be followed. Those will be listed in the solicitation, so you'll know up front what rules and regulations you're going to have to follow should you win this contract. And there's also information that needs to be in your proposal. So they tell you that's probably the biggest thing the biggest fear I guess most people have when responding to an RFP is how do I write my proposal? Well, we're going to show you. They tell you exactly how to write your proposal. It's all in there. You just have to know where to find it and how to respond to it. And so we're going to show you that today. So, and how they evaluate your proposal has to be in the RFP as well. So not only do they tell you what to include in your response, they also tell you how it's going to be graded. So what are the factors we're going to use to grade your response? Those are great things to know, and they'll help you craft your response so you have a better chance at winning the contract. So where do you find RFPs for the federal system? It's on sam.gov. That's where you go. Anything over, I believe it's 25,000 must be listed at sam.gov. So anything under than that, there's different avenues contracting offices can use. A lot of time it's under a credit card. They'll just use credit cards to buy things. or it'll be some micro purchase thing, maybe some kind of GSA schedule or something like that. Uh, But in general, anything over 25,000 is going to be at sam.gov. So at sam.gov, there's a contracting section. You can click that, and then you can go and do like a search and maybe use Guam as a keyword or something if you want to see all the things on Guam. And it'll pop up all the opportunities, or you can search in so many different ways. We do a whole webinar on how to search the contracting section of sam.gov. So if you want more information on that, go to our YouTube channel and look it up. Okay. But this is where you go. This is where you find federal opportunities, sam.gov. So this is kind of like how a basic RFP is organized. This is a standard federal contract form, the first page, the solicitation offer and award form. I forget the number of the form, but that's basically what it is. But if you look towards the bottom, there's like a part one, part two, part three, part four. And those are all the different sections of the solicitation as well as the contract. Should you win or submit the successful offer? Sorry, got some people logging in here. All right, just let them in. So we're going to go through these different sections real quick, just so you have an idea. Now, this is the typical way you see them in a lot of different agencies, like the Navy, the Air Force use this A through M type method. But you'll also see some agencies use a numbering method, like 0, 100, 0, 200, 0, 300, 0, 400. But in general, the content is pretty much the same. There's a solicitation form section, there's a supply section, there's a description, there's a packaging. It's just sometimes the numbering convention is a little different from agency to agency. So just be aware of that. All right, so let's look at part one here, which is the usually the schedule, the scope of work. So in the section A, they'll have the solicitation information, the contract form, and it's usually one page. And this is where they tell you like, is this contract set aside for uh, some kind of category? For example, a set aside is like the government can say, hey, we want to set aside work for hub zone only, or women owned only, or small business only. Or maybe there's no set aside. They call that full and open competition. So that could be happening as well. But that's where you'll find that information, usually on the very first page of the solicitation. And then the point of contact information is on the bottom. And we're going to go and we're going to look at a page one here when we go and look at an actual solicitation. So you'll see all that. The section B is the supplies or services, price cost. So this is where we're going to list the CLIN's contract line item numbers. That's what a CLIN is, a contract line item number. The performance periods, sometimes known as POP, period of performance, option periods, and pricing is usually listed there. A lot of times, section B is really a separate Excel sheet. It's a separate document that's listed when you're looking at the solicitation in SAM. Many times it's broken out like that on a separate Excel sheet, but that's where you're going to basically list your pricing, basically. Section C would be usually the scope of work. What are they buying? That's what they want to know. That's in section C. And it's what you base your proposal on. That's what you respond to, on how well you can perform that basic scope of work, and basically how you are the best company to handle that scope of work. It's often connected to section J. We'll get there in a moment. Section D is very, very important for RFPs, which are actually more like RFQs, or requests for quotes, related to products. So if you're selling products to the government, you really always want to look at Section D, because tells you how you're going to deliver your products, how it's going to be packed, how they want it shipped. A lot of mistakes are made, especially when shipping products to Guam. When people are submitting their quotes on a federal solicitation, they just assume that the product needs to be shipped to Guam. You got to make sure you read this section, because many times, and more often than not, the product is actually not shipped to Guam. It's shipped to like a warehouse in California or in Texas or something. And so if you price in shipping to Guam, you're probably going to price yourself out of the equation. So look at that section, especially if you're dealing with products. Section E, inspection and acceptance. So this is going to say how's the work going to be inspected and accepted. Remember, federal buying is a lot different. Federal purchasing is a lot different than private sector purchasing, right? A company in the private sector can basically buy wherever they want, and whenever they want. They can go to any store, buy whatever they want. Sorry, I got another person logging in here. Um, but the government, there's usually a central buying office that does the purchasing. So the buying office is not the end user. They're not going to be the person or office ending up with the products. They're not going to be the person or office that's going to use the service. They're just doing the purchasing. So this section tells you who's going to inspect and accept, which normally is the end user, where you actually deliver the product or where you actually perform the service. So it's somebody else, it's some other office, some other building, some other sub agency, in that, if it's Anderson Air Force Base, it'll be some building somewhere. And so there's going to be a person and an email address and a phone number there in that section to tell you, okay, these are the people who are going to be handling the inspection and acceptance. Deliveries or performance. So how the CO or COR, CO contracting officer, sometimes abbreviated as KO, and the COR is the contracting officer representative. How they're going to manage the contract, which reports they want, what schedules they plans are expected. So normally, like in a construction contract, if you you submit the successful proposal and now you're going to get the contract, they usually say, all right, in the first 15 or 30 days, we want a mobilization plan. After that, we want some kind of activity hazard analysis, whatever, but they have plans in there in place. So this section of the contract or the solicitation is going to tell you, okay, what schedules are required should you win the contract and when those things are required. Then there's the contract administration data. So interaction procedures between the contractor and the contracting officer, who reports to who should you be talking to. If something needs to be changed, you do a site visit and you find out the conditions aren't exactly what they say they are in the scope of work, and you need to change something, who's going to handle that? So that's all spelled out. That section H is special, all the special stuff where they don't know where to put it, which section, they're going to just shove it in section H. But basically anything out of the ordinary, usually used for there are times when you might be performing a service on I'm going to keep using Anderson Air Force Base as an example, but just say a government agency's um, office or something, and you're using their property and their equipment. So if that's happening, of course, they're going to want you to use and take care of their equipment and property in a certain way, and that'll all be in section H. Not very common, but it does happen. Section I are all the contract clauses. So I guess like we saw in the first definition of an RFP in that first FAR clause there, the government needs to tell you which rules, which regulations, which FAR clauses, which laws are going to apply to this contract. We include DFARs in there because remember the FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. The DFARS is the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement. So the Department of Defense and any other agency as well can take the federal regulations and tighten them up and add some amendments to them and make them a little more stringent and have their own basically subset of regulations. And that's what the Department of Defense or the Department of War has, and that's known as the DFARS. So that section will tell you which rules basically are going to apply to this contract. Then you have all the attachments in section J. And so that's where, like if there's building schematics or any kind of attachment that's going to help clarify the scope of work, that'll all be in there. Tech specs are in there too. So it's a pretty important section. But now we get to the actual meat and the very, very important sections. So coming up in L and M. K is your representations and certifications. If you remember when you did your SAM registration, there was a section in there known as representations and certifications. And it was a bunch of legal questions like, has anybody in your company been indicted? Is there delinquent federal taxes? Things like that. All those kinds of questions. Those are known as reps and certs. You're representing to the government and certifying that we are truthful in how we answer these questions. It's a basic framework of all the legal things related to your company. So many times when you respond to a solicitation, you need to include a copy of your reps and certs. So you can print these straight from your SAM registration. If nothing's changed, you can just hit go to SAM. There's a DFARS or FAR DFARS button, basically. Like you view your registration. There's a DFAR and FAR button. You click. I'm not sure if it says print. I forget what it says now, but you can download it and then print it as a PDF and then include that with your submission. Sometimes they make you include an actual physical copy. Sometimes they'll just go to Sam and look. I don't know why those agencies that still make you include a physical copy do that. Doesn't make sense to me because it's all in your SAM. They can just go look it for themselves. But anyways, if they require you to actually include it, you can just print it from your SAM. Okay, and then there's instructions, conditions, and notices of offers. We kind of call this the weed out section. So this is normally where they tell you how to format and present your proposal. It'll be things like, okay, we want you to use this kind of font. We want you to use no smaller than 10 or 12. We want you to use single-sided pages or double-sided pages. So it's kind of like little basic instructions, and you could use the wrong font, and they have the grounds to say, oh, well, then you're disqualified from this solicitation, basically. So it's a very important section. You got to look in there and see how they want things formatted. The number one section, though, the best section, the greatest section on how to write your proposal and how to write a good proposal is in the evaluation factors. Because remember, the government has to tell you how they're going to grade your proposal. And that's all in section M. And so when we look at an actual solicitation here, we're going to go through section M and you'll see how they do this. So, all right. So we're going to look at this solicitation here. This is an actual one from Sam. This is a few months ago. This was for integrated solid waste management and pavement clearance services. So basically, trash collection, cleaning up streets and things like that. And so this is how it looked in Sam when you saw the opportunity. So, like we do in our webinar on how to find opportunities in SAM, there's a notice ID in here. It tells you when the offers due and things like that. And then on the bottom of the notice, there'll be links and attachments. Now, in this case, you'll see that it really didn't have like links to download the documents. It actually had a link to go to another thing known as Pi. I'll explain that in a second. And then download the documents from there. And we see this happening quite a lot, more and more and more with Department of War, Department of Defense. So, and like I said, 99.9% of all the federal contracts in Guam come from Department of War. So make sure you are registered in PI. PI is the Procurement Integrated Enterprise Environment. It's once you get a federal or Department of War contract and you start invoicing them, you start billing them, you have to use that PI system to submit your invoice. And now they're also using it for downloading solicitations and things like that, downloading documents that are in solicitations and actually responding to RFPs as well. Many of the sub agencies, like Guam Army Guard, uses it quite a bit. Air Force is starting to use it more, Navy starting to use it more. But they'll, before you would just email them your proposal or you'd drop it off an actual physical copy somewhere. Now they're just saying, hey, upload it at Pi. And so that's what they're making you do. So just know if you're not registered in Pi and you're thinking, okay, my proposal is due tomorrow, I'll just register in Pi today. That is not going to happen. It takes longer than a day to get registered in Pi. It's probably going to take at least, I'd say, 3 days at a minimum. So make sure you have enough time if you're, want to bid on something, to make sure you have that Pi registration all done. If you have problems with that, we can help you with that. That's one thing we also assist with. So, okay. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through an actual solicitation here. So let me just go through like a little quick summary of what we're going to do. Then we'll go get into the details. So we're going to go through this integrated solid waste management pavement clearance services solicitation. We're going to first check page 1. Then we're going to look at the scope of work, which is kind of funky in this one. And then we're going to look at the proposal instructions, the weed out section. And then we'll look at the evaluation factors. That's where it shows you how to write your proposal. And then we'll look at the pricing. And if you have any questions, what do you do, right? So how does that work? So Little tip here. When you find something like this in SAM that you want to respond to, go to Pi, download all the documents, or if they're not using Pi, all the documents will be listed there. Just download them all. And then when you go through the documents, look for these kind of keywords. Look for due date, look for scope of work. Sometimes they call it performance work statement. So maybe just look for the word work. And how do you look for these things? Do a control F. If you're using a Windows computer, control F is the find function. So when you open a document, just hit control F and then search for those words because a lot of these solicitations are hundreds and hundreds of pages. So you don't want to just start reading from cover to cover. That's going to waste a lot of time. You want to jump straight to these sections. So you want to know where the evaluation factors, type that control F evaluation, and then hit enter and let it find all the times of the word evaluation is said, and then it'll get you to that section. So that's the best way. Control F is your best friend. I think in on an Apple computer, it might be Apple F. I'm not sure. But I know on Windows it's Control F. All right. So, do we have something on the next screen? Oh, no. Okay. Let's go. I'm going to jump over to the PDF so you can see this actual document. So let's get this loaded up here. So right now you should be seeing on your screen the actual solicitation. So this is only 77 pages. So like I said, we don't want to just jump through. First thing we want to do is find out, all right, we saw this, we're interested in this. Can we qualify for the basics of it, right? So we're looking at it and we're looking at the form here and we see in box 10, it's marked small business. So are we a small business? We should know that. Most of people in this webinar are small businesses. But if we're not, if we're large business, then we cannot be the prime contractor on this. We'd have to be a subcontractor. Or if we were part of that small business mentor protege program, we could have our small business protege bid on this, and then we could be involved. But basically, this is set aside. So box 10 tells you who it's set aside for. In this case, it's set aside for small business. But you can see in there, there's other ways they could have set it aside. So, okay. And then you see the size standard and the NAICS code. So all that is telling you there is 47 million is the limit for a small business for this particular solicitation. So, if you are doing more than $47 million in annual revenue, then you are not a small business for this particular solicitation. So that's what it's telling you on this screen right here. Okay, but we're small businesses, all right. And then when is this thing due? That's in box 8, which is near the top right here. So this tells you, okay, it's due. So of course this was a couple months ago, but let's say it was April 7 right now. Probably not going to make it. But if it's maybe a week before, a couple weeks before, maybe we would have go, okay, I think we can do it. We have enough time. So, and then there's contact information there. There's number box 7, the name, and 7A is the name, 7B is the phone number of the person to contact. Um, if we scroll down a little, I don't know if we're going to have any more really good information here, but well, we'll see the solicitation, what it's for. So it's for integrated solid waste management, pavement clearance at all U.S. military facilities in Guam. So it's the Navy base, it's the Air Force base, it's the Marine Corps base, and all these other different things related to that. So, oh, it includes Marianas Islands, FSM, and Palau. Okay. And then they tell you what kind of contract right here, real quick. So it's an IDIQ, which is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity. What that means is we're not sure how many times we're going to use you to do these services, and how often and where at any given time. So it's going to be kind of like if you're familiar with in Guam government, local government, there's something known as an open purchase order, where you have an open purchase order, meaning the government has already negotiated with you the pricing and everything. You've been awarded the contract, but they're going to buy as they need things done. And so you have an open purchase order, meaning when the government needs something, they go, okay, put it on that purchase order, and then bill us off that purchase order. So that's kind of what this is. And then they tell you down here this a little basic description of the work. And so you're going to do trash collection, disposal, recycling, pavement clearance, okay, and anything related to that. All right. And then they'll tell you where the annexes are for this performance workspace. So what other things you should look into? So Obviously, this solicitation here is not using our A through M format. It's using this numbered format. So that's why Control F is your best friend. You can search. The words are normally the same, but sometimes, like I said, the numbering and lettering is not the same. So you would want to go to those annexes next. So we're going to do that. And we're going to jump over to those are all in actually another downloaded document here called JC1. So let me jump over here. So let me just scroll up a little so you can see the document. This is what it is. This is the performance work statement annex that they're talking about. And this thing is only 251 pages. So again, you don't want to read it cover to cover. You want to jump around at what you want to know, right? So if you go through here and look at the table of contents, basically, down here, you're going to see, all right, it's how they tell you how it's organized. Annex 1 is the general information. Annex 2 contains on-site project management and administration requirements, which we don't really want to get into just yet. We want to just look at the scope of work. And Annexes 3 through 18 contain the technical requirements. So somewhere in Annex 3 through 18 is the scope of work. And we see here it's in Annex 15 because that's where the integrated solid waste management and pavement clearance stuff is. So we would jump straight to this 15.030.030. So let's do this. I haven't checked if this works, but let's see. I'm just gonna, last time I did a search by Annex 15, as you can see, but I'm just gonna try the number this time, see if it goes straight to there. Where's my little window? Why won't it let me see it? Because this is blocking it. Hold on, I gotta move something. All right. All right, so here it is. So basically it's just a list. It's like a line item list of things. And so locations, different offices, commissary, mobilization costs, and then you put your pricing here. So this is how they did it. So instead of actually listing what you're going to do, they just made it like a Excel sheet. And I think this goes on for many, many, many pages. So yes, it does. Okay. And then here they tell you a little bit about the work you need to do. Okay. So that's how you find the scope of work. So right away, you can look through this. Probably spend 5, 10 minutes looking at the scope of work and figure out if it's up your alley or not, if it's something you can handle or not. If you can't handle it, maybe can you team up with somebody to work with it? Can you find some subcontractors to help you with it? Who knows? But that's what you want to do first, right? We're just figuring out, we're doing a quick analysis. And a quick analysis usually takes probably, I'd say, an hour to 2 hours. Whereas if you just read it from cover to cover, that's probably going to take a couple days. How many hundreds of pages this is. So that would be your scope of work to look through there. Now let's look at the proposal instructions, which I think is, if we go back to the solicitation, I already had searched this up earlier, so it's on page 60. Yeah. So this is the weed out section. So this is where they tell you how to format your proposal. So again, they want you to upload it in Pi. So again, like I mentioned earlier, make sure you get your Pi set up at least a few days before you have to upload this. There's hard copies as well that are going to be hand delivered or mailed, which is interesting to me that they have two ways of doing this. Okay, normally there's only one way of doing it. Okay, and this is where they want it hand delivered or mailed. So they give you the instructions there. You're going to have two volumes, the price proposal, and then all the non-cost price proposal factors 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which we haven't even looked at yet, but we're going to look at eventually. And so volume 1 is going to be your price original hard copy and 3 copies and an electronic. Okay, so yeah, they want both hard copy and electronic. If there are inconsistencies, the electronic copy shall govern. So they're telling you there, the electronic copy is the most important. 3-ring binders. So I've been asked, well, what if I use a 2-ring binder or a 4-ring binder? I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but right there they could disqualify you. That's a possibility for something as easily as simple as that. It just shows that you're not following instructions. That's why. All right. And then they tell you the factors. Let's see. And they tell you how long you need to hold your pricing, basically. So proposal shall be valid for 120 days from the date of proposal due. So that is, what is that, 4 months, basically. You got to hold your pricing for at least 4 months. They talk about how you have to make sure you have base access because you need to deliver this thing. So, no verbal queries. So if you have questions, there is a form, and we'll talk about that in a minute here, but there's a form you need to use. So they have a basic form to ask questions. There is a pre-proposal conference and a site visit. This happens quite a lot with construction or larger service contracts because definitely you want to see what's going on. Sometimes the pre-proposal conference sometimes is not at the site. They just kind of go over the solicitation with you. But many times they also have a site visit where you can actually see the site. But this thing is going to be done in multiple sites, many sites, all the different bases. So they're probably not going to do a site visit. They're just going to have a pre-proposal conference that'll basically outline where you need to be doing all this work. Oh, actually, I'll take that back. There is a site visit scheduled right here. They tell you what forms you need to fill out. So, like I said, this is all the weed out stuff. So for Naval Base Guam, you need this. For the Marine Corps base, you need that. For NAVSUP, you need that on it, which is on Anderson. Okay. And then amendments. So they're going to be posting amendments in Pi. So again, you need that Pi account so you can check the amendments. You definitely, if there's an amendment, you definitely want to download it and read through it. Normally, amendments are things like when a scope of work changes, they'll put it in the amendment. If they did something wrong with the original solicitation and had to need to correct something, that'll be in the amendment. And then the most popular thing amendments are used for is to change the proposal due date. Many times proposals get extended for multiple different reasons. So they don't want multiple proposals. They just want one proposal from a firm. Okay. And then I give you all the FAR clauses here. I'm going to just scroll down here. This one was interesting because CMMC is a big thing now in federal contracting. Or I'm sorry, in DoD, Department of War contracting. And so this one actually says CMMC level 1 is required. And what is what is CMMC first? We do a whole webinar on that. Go check it out on YouTube. But just basically, CMMC is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. It's basically you telling the government that you are practicing these 15 requirements to have basic, safe cybersecurity. And those 15 requirements are outlined in the level 1 documents that, like I said, it's all in our webinar. We can show you how to do that. Um, and you have to actually go on Pi and go to this section known as SPURS, the Supplier Performance Risk System. I believe the last S is for something like that. And you have to let them know that you've done your level 1. Level 1, there's no score. You don't put any type of score, but you just have to let them know you've done your level 1 and you're conforming to all 15 requirements. You meet all 15 requirements. And you also have to let them know when the date that happened. So this is happening. This is going to start happening more and more. CMMC is in effect right now, and level 1 is the default level. It's a self-certification. You need to be doing this. So you will be seeing this more and more in Department of War solicitations. And then coming up, just on a side note here, probably by the end of this year, they're saying around November of 2026, they'll start requiring more and more solicitations with level 2. Level 2 requires an actual third party to come in and assess your security to make sure you're meeting in level 1, there's 15 requirements. In level 2, there's over 100 requirements. So, but that is coming. Okay, for some reason that doesn't want to work. Let's just use a different way to scroll down here. And I believe, is that it? Is that all I marked? That might be all I marked. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So those are the proposal instructions. So now let's do our control F and find the evaluation factors. We're still doing our quick analysis. And so if it looks like we can meet all those, we're going to continue on. If it looks like we have a problem with those requirements, we should just stop right there and don't waste your time reading any further. Something popped in the chat here. Let me check. Is CMMC required for prime and sub? Yes, CMMC flows down to the subs. So, without getting too technical, level one covers, it's called FCI, Federal Contract Information. So basically, if you download a solicitation, and you're the prime, and that's level one, that needs to be protected, even though it's not confidential or top secret or anything like that. That information needs still needs to be protected. Now, if you want a subcontractor and now you share that document with them, then they need to protect it as well. So that's how that works. It flows down. That's level one CMMC. So yeah, whatever government documents you're sharing with your subcontractors, and then they're sharing with their subcontractors, and they're sharing with their subcontractors, that all needs to be protected. Okay. So now we're going to do look at the evaluation factors. This is now we've decided, okay, we can still handle this. We could still probably respond in time. So let's look at how they want us to do our proposal. How do we actually write this thing? So we would do a control F, find evaluation factors, and I already did this earlier, and it's on page 68. So let's just actually jump to 68, which is just the next page. All right, so there they are. So if you scroll through this real quick, I'm just going to give you some highlights here. If you look at number three, I should have highlighted that, but the LPTA process, that's lowest price technically acceptable. So what this mean is they're going to say, all right, here's our, which is actually kind of weird to use in a solicitation like this, but never mind that. What they're going to do is look at evaluation factors, and if you get, acceptable ratings on your evaluation factors, then they're going to look at the price. So basically, if 10 people, 10 bidders all had acceptable on their valuation factors, then the lowest price is going to win. That's how it's going to work. Lowest price technically acceptable. So, um, and they're saying here you got to have at least acceptable in order to be eligible. So if you have one of your factors rated as unacceptable, then you're out. You're out of the competition. So all right, so they got a technical evaluation and they describe here how they're going to do this. And like I said, in this case, it's just going to be acceptable and unacceptable. There are other RFPs out there where they'll have different kind of ratings. It'll be excellent, very good, good, marginal, or satisfactory, marginal, that kind of thing. So the ratings change depending on which agency you're selling to. In this case, though, it's pretty easy. It's just acceptable or unacceptable. So, okay. So then they tell you the definitions of weaknesses. If you have weaknesses, so weakness is a flaw that increases the risk, or a flaw in the pros that increase the risk of contract performance. Significant weakness appreciably increases the risk of unsuccessful. So this is all subjective. It's pretty subjective. It's all in the eyes of the people who are evaluating the proposals. Um, Uncertainty and deficiency. So they give you the definition of the terms that they're going to use when they grade your proposal. And then there's a safety evaluation. So this is very common. Every construction contract and many service contracts have this type of requirement where you got to include your safety data, basically your DART rating, your TCR rates. So basically, if you are a contractor that's building stuff or has employees out in the field doing things, you have OSHA requirements. If you're doing government contracts, OSHA requirements, and you need to be tracking all this kind of stuff. So they want to make sure you've been tracking that and they're going to want to see your ratings and stuff. So again, if you're not doing any of this and you don't have any of this stuff, you might just go, well, I'm out. I'm done now. Yeah. So they give you how they're going to rate your safety requirements. So there's going to be acceptable and unacceptable. Okay. Then they have a past performance evaluation. So if you've attended any of our other previous webinars, we always talk about the difference between past performance and experience. Experience is what you've done. Past performance is how well you've done it. So they don't really want to see your experience. They want to see your past performance. So they're going to have you done it, when you turn in your proof of things that you've done, are you getting good ratings from your customers? We're going to look at that here shortly. So just hang on for a second. All right. And then they give you a little note here saying, hey, what if you don't have any past performance? Then you'll be determined to have a neutral past performance. So it's not negative. It's not acceptable. It's not unacceptable. You're just neutral. You're good. You still can continue on if you don't have any past performance. So right here it tells you a neutral rating shall be considered acceptable. So, okay. And what do they think? What considers as past performance? Recent is considered to be projects within the last 5 years. So that are relevant based on the similarity of service, support, complexity, and magnitude of work. So it's got to be similar to the type of work that we're bidding on here. Okay. All right. So now let's look at the actual valuation factors. So there's going to be five factors: a technical approach, there's going to be experience, there's management plan, quality control, there's safety, and past performance. All right. So let's go down here a little bit. Price is the easiest one. But here they tell you how to do your pricing. Do you complete the standard form, which is the document that comes with the solicitation? Have all your amendments there. Have a complete schedule of everything. The Excel document that has all the contract line item numbers. If you see ELIN, that's just they're right there, exhibit line item number, but actually extended line item number, and then have all the following items available. So you need an offer letter. So when you're putting your package, your proposal together, here's how they're telling you how to do it. Here's the instructions right here. Have an offer letter, which has at the minimum has the following information. Should have the solicitation number. Should have your name, address, phone, and email. Should have your UEI. Where's that? That comes from SAM, right? When you registered in SAM and they approved your name and address of your company, they verified that it really does exist. Because remember, you had to upload documents. They issued you your UEI, so that's what you're going to put there. And that's not your cage code. That's your UEI, right? Name, title, telephone number, email, the person who's authorized to negotiate for your company. Your reps and certs. So here they want an actual copy of your reps and certs in SAM. Again, I don't know why they can just go look themselves, but so you're going to have to go to SAM, print it out, and include it with your proposal. Here they want some financial statements. So maybe you're a brand new company. And I've only been doing this for 2 years. I don't have 3 years worth of financials. Well, what you may want to do then is ask that question. Was 2 years, can I submit 2 years? Because our company's only 2 years old, something like that. Um, evidence of your working capital, operating capital. Why do they want that? Because they want to know that should you win this contract, you have the financing ability to do it. So description of your facilities, operational capacities, um, and if you have any other work presently under contract. So a lot of contractors, they have like a timeline, they have work in progress. So it lists like all the different contracts they're doing at once, when it's expected to end, when the new project's expected to start. So a lot of companies have these ongoing timelines. That's what they want to see. Okay. So now we get into actually how to write it. So let's go to factor one. The technical approach. So you're going to submit a narrative that clearly demonstrates your understanding of these things that are highlighted here in purple. So basically the performance work statement. So number one, they want an organizational chart. So that's not very hard. Who reports to who? So if you have an organizational chart, my safety guy reports to the vice president or whatever, just have it all planned out, and then you're going to need to include that here. Describe what you will do to ensure timely startup. Include a schedule of key events. So a lot of construction companies, service type companies have this stuff already. They have templates for this. They have these basic documents where they have, all right, when we start up a project, these are the basic things we do, right? We make sure our safety guy is in place. We make sure we have the equipment lined up already. We have the support products behind it that are going to be used in the mobilization. We have the vehicles ready, whatever it is. It's all in there, right? So that's what you're going to do. Number three, detail the planned approach for performing the ISWM, that's the solid waste management services as outlined. So how are you going to do it, basically? They want to know. And they say in there, include a discussion of the personnel, the equipment, your supplies, your procedures, and any other resources. So they're telling you exactly what to do here, right? So basically, you're going to write how your company is the best proposer to handle this, to do this for them. Now, of course, it's easier said than done. It's a little harder to, easy to think about, but you got to put it on paper now. Number four, identify the risks you expect to encounter. Well, if you've been doing this type of work, you probably have an idea what kind of risks you're going to encounter. And then how are you going to mitigate those risks? So you see here, it's spelled out exactly how to write your proposal. So what you don't want to do is say something like, "We are going to identify the risks and then mitigate them." Well, you've said nothing there, right? Okay, what are the common risks that you expect to find? Probably on Guam, there may be some hazardous materials, some unexploded ordnance. Who knows what you're going to find, if, especially if you're going to be digging. And then how are you going to handle that? Well, we're gonna stop the work on site. We're going to report to our safety officer. We're going to get the EOD in there, the disposal unit, whatever, something like that. But you got to put some specifics in there of what you're going to do. Describe your approach to ensure the following permits are provided for the contract within 15 calendar days. So, like I said, when you win these contracts, there's things you need to do. There's a calendar, there's timelines that you have to have in place. So, describe how you're going to get these permits. Maybe you already have these permits. Who knows? Because maybe you're already doing this. Right? If Guahan Waste Control, was it Guahan Waste Control or Mr. Rubbish Man, companies on Guam that are already doing this, they probably already have those permits. So, but if you don't, they want to know how you're going to get them, and within 2 weeks, basically. So you might stop right there and go, you know what? There's no way we can get these in 2 weeks. We're done. Or you might want to ask them a question. Hey, these usually take longer than 2 weeks to get. Can we get can can this solicitation be amended to maybe make that 30 calendar days after the award or whatever? So, okay. And then, like I said, don't repeat, right? Don't repeat the performance work statement. Provide the narrative charts and documentation that shows you can do it. And then here's the kicker. You got 10 pages. So you can't be writing and writing and writing and writing and having all this flowery language and going on and on about how great your company is. You got to be concise. You got to get to the point. So, and then they tell you here it's 10 single-sided or 5 double-sided, however you want to do it. Now, what happens if you turn in 11 pages? I'll tell you what happens. They take the 11th page and throw it in the trash and they never read it. So if all the good stuff is in the 11th page, they're not going to get to it. So, all right. Then they tell you the base of the evaluation. So they want to make sure that you understand what they want and that your approach is basically the best approach to accomplish that service that they're looking for. So, and then be rated acceptable if you have adequate understanding. So as long as you know what's going on and your approach and approach to accomplishing. It's just remember, this is just acceptable or unacceptable. So adequate understanding, adequate approach. All right. That's factor one. Now we go to factor two, your experience. Remember, there's experience and past performance, two different things, right? So attach a project data sheet. So basically, we're going to list similar work you've done related to this. And again, maximum of 5 recent and relevant projects. And they told you earlier, recent meant no more than 5 years old, and relevant means relevant in size and scope. So, um, okay, 100, right, they define it here a little more, 100% cleaner than 5 years. And there we go, size, scope, and complexity. Okay, so what's the size? 500,000. So the projects that you're going to show as your experience need to be at least $500,000 projects. What happens if I turn in a $400,000 project? There's a good chance they're going to say that project is not relevant. So, okay. All right. So that's a list of projects basically that meet that requirement. Your management plan, your quality control. So again, they're going to tell you how to write it here. They want you to have an emphasis on your effective organizational structure. Remember that earlier you had that lines of communication, who's reporting to who? That kind of connects to this. So who is your organization structured in a good way so that the performance of this work can be done adequately? So, and there's a quality control going on. How are we monitoring quality control? So, discuss separately workforce management. So here they again, what's workforce management? So describe your lines of authority. Who's supervising who? The span of the contract. Who's accountable to who? Um, if you have any joint venture agreements, subcontractors, basically who's reporting to who? That's what they want to know. If you have subcontractors, what percentage of involvement are they are related to the specific solutions? So, we're going to use a sub to do this aspect. We're going to use another sub to do this other aspect. Whatever it is, it's all got to be outlined here. Who are your key personnel? Again, project manager, quality manager, site safety and health officer, on-site supervisors. Who are those people? They want names. Right? And right here it says at the last sentence, failure to identify all key personnel shall result in an unacceptable rating. So right here, you might stop and go, you know what? I don't have all these people. How am I gonna, well, maybe can you get them? Can you team up with somebody to do this? You know, whatever it is. If you're ready to decide I can't, I'm not going to do this, then that's where you stop. You don't have to read any further. We're doing our quick analysis, so we don't have to read the entire thing. All right, succession plan. So provide a succession plan for temporary and permanent replacement of key personnel. So what happens if that key personnel quits? What do you got going on? How do you hire new people? How do you figure that out? So quality management, how are you going to monitor, document, measure, and control, and improve contract performance? And then process. What are the processes you're using? Now, again, they give you a little kicker here, 10 pages maximum of this. So the first one was it also 10? So we got 10 there, we got 10 here. If the narrative exceeds 10 pages, you're only going to evaluate the first 10 pages. The remainder will not be evaluated. So, and then again, they give you acceptable. So how do you know if your plan, if your 10-page plan here is acceptable? They tell you right here. Well, if you've demonstrated that you have effective project management, you have the ability to utilize such objectives to successfully meet. Okay. Your key personnel meet or exceed the minimum requirements in terms of experience, education, and training. So that's what you want to talk about with your key personnel. What's their experience, education, and training? If your plan to, in case someone quits or leaves your company and you can easily refill that position is adequate. And if your quality control measures are appropriate. So that's what they're going to look at here. So again, they tell you exactly in here how to write your proposal. Safety, that was those ratings I was talking about earlier. So you're going to have to turn in those ratings. They want 5 previous calendar years worth of data. So again, if you don't have 5 years worth of data, maybe you've been around for 2 or 3 years, I would ask the question, just submit a question to them saying, hey, we only have 3 or 5 years of data. What is that acceptable or not? Okay. And then they have the technical approach. So you got to submit a narrative of your safety plan, basically. So how are you going to do a safety management system? How are you going to execute that? What's your valuation process used to select subcontractors? How are you making sure your subcontractors are practicing good safety? How are you doing that? How will you oversee them as well? And this one is really small. You only got 2 pages to explain this. So, all right. And then they tell you what the limits are. So if you're exceeding these limits, you're going to be out of the competition. Okay. They want to see the technical approach to safety. Make sure your safety management plan has this in it. It's got to have the management, leadership involvement, employee involvement, hazard prevention, hazard control. So all this stuff related to that. And describe a methodical process of evaluating your subcontractor safety performance, right? So if you've done that, you're going to get an adequate rating. If you've described a logical management plan to hold both your company and your subcontractors accountable, you're going to get an adequate rating. I'm sorry, acceptable rating. Anything else, you're going to get unacceptable. So again, they do it again. They tell you exactly how to write your proposal. And then past performance. This is done by filling out a document where you tell the government, these are my customers that have given me good ratings on similar type work. And then you turn that in, and then what the government will do is contact them to verify those ratings, basically. Now, if you've done federal work before, and as a prime and you've been rated, your ratings will be in a system known as CPARS, the Contract Performance Assessment Rating System. And that'll all be in there, and they can just go look it up. But if you don't, then you're going to use that form. It's known as a PPQ, a past performance questionnaire, and there'll be a copy here that they give you to use, a template basically. Oh, here we go. A copy is in attachment D. I think we're going to take a look at that later. Okay. But basically, they just want to see to make sure that you've completed these projects that are similar and that you've got some good ratings on them. That's what they want to see. Okay. Now, they did say earlier also, if you don't have any past performance, you're going to get a neutral rating, which will be considered acceptable. So that's good. Okay. So that is the evaluation factors. That's where the meat is. That tells you exactly how to write your proposal. And I know I'm making it sound easier than it really is. It is difficult to put all this together. But once you do it the first time, you now have a template that you can use for a bunch of other, because many of these federal solicitations are structured in the same way. They usually want the same things. They usually always want a safety plan. If you're in the construction and services type business, they want a safety plan. They want a technical plan. They want the past performance. They want the experience. So if you just make that part of your business routine to keep track of those things, it's not too hard to bid on these things as they pop up because you will have the templates in place basically. You just got to make sure if you're going to do that, if you're going to use an older proposal that maybe you submitted and didn't win or you won with, make sure if you're going to copy or paste that you change well, number one, make sure the copy and paste connects to wherever you're copying and paste it to, and make sure it matches whatever section you're in. But make sure and the paragraphs flow so that when someone's reading it, it matches. Everything matches and it's correct. 'Cause that's one of the things that happens sometimes. People copy and paste and they forget to check it to read the entire paragraph that they're pasting it into. So, okay. So that is the evaluation factors. Let's look at pricing because let's say we go through all this. Okay, we can handle all this. We've done this type of work. Where do we submit our pricing? They said it was on attachment D. No, it wasn't. It was, man, where was it? That's a good question. Is this the pricing? No, that's the past performance questionnaire. It's an on X. I'm sorry. It's on an Excel sheet. So let me pull up an Excel sheet. I think I have it loaded up here. Yeah, here we go. So this should be on your screens now. So this is where you put your pricing, and you can see down here you have a bunch of tabs. There's a summary, mobilization pricing, the base period IDIQ, then first option period. So this is a multi-year contract. So the base period is year one. The first option period is year two. Why is it called an option period? Because year two is not guaranteed. If you do inadequate or, poor work in year one, then before year two rolls around, they will put it out to rebid basically. And someone else could take over for the second year. That's a possibility. And so that's why they're known as option years because they're not guarantees. If you do well though, year one, then they'll exercise the option and you'll get year two. So, and usually these are 5 years, so there should be four option periods. Oh, five option periods already. So this is basically a 6-year contract. So, okay. So this is where you would put all your pricing and submit it to them. So, all right. So we saw that. That looks doable. If you have questions, there's something known as an RFI, a request for information. And you don't want to call them or email them because they'll just tell you fill out the RFI basically. So this is what that looks like. Let me make this a little bigger. But this is where you put your question. And then what will happen is they'll gather all the questions from everybody. They'll put their response in the boxes and then they'll post it out as an amendment in Pi. For this particular situation, they're using Pi. So that's why you want to look at the amendments because people will ask questions and you want to see the answers. So just remember when you ask a question, everyone who's bidding on this is going to get to see the question and everyone's going to get to see the answer. So sometimes people play this game, should I ask the question or not? Because maybe I don't want people to know I'm asking that question. Just be careful with that game because if the question deals with some kind of maybe ambiguity in the solicitation or maybe a problem with the site conditions, if you're going to assume something, you're going to take a risk then. So you definitely don't want to assume anything. You want to get it clarified so that it doesn't cost you any money. So, okay. So that was that. Let's look at what else we want to look at. Let's so one more thing. Oh, here just to show you the past performance questionnaire. So if you don't have any CPARS ratings, this is what you're going to fill out. So you're going to tell the government basically the different clients you've had, what projects you've had that relate to this type of work, and what kind of grade you got from your clients on this type of work. And then they're going to contact your clients and find out if they were basically if you're telling the truth is what they're going to find out. And so you would use these kind of ratings here. So in one of our webinars, we always tell our clients, hey, if you're brand new to government contracting, maybe you're only working in the private sector, whenever you finish a contract, have your client, your customer rate you. Have them tell you if you did satisfactory, if you were poor, very good, exceptional, whatever, but put out some kind of rating sheet and use that for all your customers and all your clients so that you can start building a portfolio of past performance. And then you can use it when you branch into federal contracting because you'll have all this data on file. So, okay. I'll send a copy of this to everyone so you can have a copy and you can tweak this for your own use. But this is kind of how it looks here. So you just have your customer circle however they think they should rate you. It's also a good way to find out your strengths and weaknesses of your company because if your customers will tell you. You might think, hey, you know, we got the best technicians in town. And then you get your ratings back and they go, well, the technicians were, I don't know, messy. They were smoking outside the front door. They were whatever. And then you realize, oh, maybe we don't have the best technician. So, okay. Just a little side note there. So let's say we went through, we did our quick analysis. We spent our hour, 2 hours, whatever, looking at all this. What should we do next? Well, let's go back to our PowerPoint here. Um, can we do this? Number one, and can we do it? Well, in this case, we just need to be adequate, right? But you know, we are going to be competing. There's always going to be competition. It's almost impossible that we're going to be the only bidder. So, can we do it best? Do we understand the evaluation factors? Do we know what they want? Can we write our proposal based on those things? And then do we have the relative experience and past performance? And if we don't, can we get it? Can we team up with somebody to get it? If yes to all of these, then what we should do is read through the entire solicitation. Then we'll go read those 250 pages. Because sometimes there might be something in there that pops up that I've seen like the scope of work will just tell you things, but then if you read further, it'll say, oh, by the way, this building has asbestos in it, and we need to take the asbestos out. Well, if that's not something you do, which is not something that a lot of companies do, that's going to cost some money, and you're going to need to get probably an expert, a company that specializes in that to do that. So make sure you read the entire solicitation. That was just an example of a construction possibility there. And then a lot of companies use these bid or no bid checklists. This is something I just pulled off the internet, but you might have your own. So just go through your own no bid valuation and see if you can do this. But the basic were things, is it strategic? Is this up your company's alley? Or if it's something new and you do it and you win it, will it open up doors for your company, right? And can you win? Are there way too many competitors that just have more experience than you have? You know, you got to think about that. Can you make money? That's essentially what we're trying to do here, right? There's no sense in doing a job where you don't make any money or you lose money. I mean, that's kind of pointless. Now, there's that argument you hear from some companies that, well, we're just going to lowball this so that we get in the door, and now the federal government knows about us and they know our capabilities. If you want to do that, that's up to you. I would highly suggest not doing that because it could cost your company a lot of money and it might not work out the way you want it to work out. I mean, if you can barely do this type of work and you fail on the job, that could be way worse than trying to lowball it and get in the door. So you definitely want to make money. It needs to be advantageous for your company. Is the risk manageable? Again, it's all about risk management here. So, but again, use your own bid, no bid checklist, however you want to do it. So once we say yes, and we're going to do this thing, now we got to put our proposal together. Let me see how much time we got left here. Okay. So download all the documents, read through everything, start assigning duties, right? In a small 1 to 5 person company, maybe the owner is going to do everything because they know everything. In larger companies, you got your safety people, you got your technical people, you got your people your estimators and stuff. You got your people who know about the experience and all that and the past performance. So start assigning them duties and let them handle that. Gather all your documents. Like I said, if you've been keeping track of this since day one, or maybe you just started a couple months ago, whatever, you have all your records. Just go to those records, gather it all to get it ready for your factors, your 1 through 5 factors. Make sure your proposal matches the organization requirements. Remember, we saw in the valuation factors, they were like, number one, do this. Number two, do this. Number three, do this. If your proposal can follow that kind of logic and follow that order when you're responding, that's better. Because remember, the people who are evaluating this, they kind of have a checklist. As they're reading through your proposal, they know how you're supposed to respond. And they'll just go, oh, yeah, they responded to that. They responded to that. They responded to that. And the checklist is going to match the evaluation factors. So sometimes it's a little difficult because sometimes the evaluation factors are in a strange order. And like factor one talks about something, and factor two talks about something that's not even related to that. And it's hard to make it the narrative flow, but try to make it match as possible, much as possible. Basically, the idea is to make it as easy for the evaluators as possible. If an evaluator has an easy time going, yep, they said that, you tend to get better evaluation. So, um, making sure your narrative flows and succinct. That's especially true for the cut and paste stuff. Make sure it all flows. Again, right to the valuation factors. I can't stress that enough. And while you're writing there, you got to, when you're talking about your approach, you got to tell them how your approach is the best approach. That's what you need to do. Check for any spelling errors, misplaced information, things like that. Again, with the copy paste, that happens quite a bit. Let's look at it. This is a debrief, actually. This is a copy of an actual debrief. This was for, I forget which, I think it was a service disabled construction, multiple award construction contracts or an SDVOSB MAC. But basically here they were told to, hey, describe how you're going to evaluate safety performance of potential subs, which we kind of saw in this solicitation that we just went over. It had this similar language. But here they said describe any innovative methods. I don't think that was in this proposal that we went over today, but for this older one here that we're using for the debrief. Um, I'm sorry, this is not from a debrief. This is an actual proposal from one of the winners on the contract. So we're going to go to a debrief later here. But the safety, and then safety narratives limited 2 pages. We did see that on the proposal we were looking at today, or the RFP we're looking at today. It did have a limit of 2 pages. So on this winning bidder safety plan, they basically said, "Hey, we're going to monitor this subcontract safety performance." And so they explained how they're going to do that. They didn't just go back and say, "Well, yeah, we'll monitor it." Well, how we're going to do that? We're going to have regular weekly safety inspections with our safety officer. We're going to note any health and safety hazards that need to be corrected and to discuss those at our weekly safety meetings. And our site-specific safety personnel supervise all our employees. And then they actually put a little thing in there that said this is proprietary. So anytime you put a proprietary thing in a proposal, make sure you mark it as proprietary. And they said, hey, we have a 7 point plan here for how we monitor, and they told them what the 7 point plan was. So that's pretty specific. There was another section in this MAC on how are you going to provide manpower, equipment, and do multiple task orders at various locations. So we didn't see that on the RFP we're looking at today, but for this MAC it was there. And so they said, well, they got a teaming partner basically, and put together they have a large enough workforce that's already distributed throughout the island, so that they can get prompt procurement of materials, and they have the contractors to do the shortest lead time possible. Now this, if you look at it, was pretty vague, not a lot of specifics, but it was good enough. If I was reviewing this, I would prefer to have more specifics in here. Okay, well, what do you mean? What kind of sizable projects? Who are these stable subcontractors? What kind of short lead time are we talking about? So be a little more specific, but this was good enough to get them into the MAC. And then how are you going to ensure, this was another one, how are you going to ensure quality control, and how are you going to ensure that not only are you that quality control is going on, but that's managed and maintained during the performance of task orders for this contract. So they said, well, we're going to test all the work under our contract and I'm sorry, maintain records of the inspection and tests. We have a QCM, so they have a quality control manager who's going to report directly to the project superintendent. The subcontractors are going to have to designate an on-site quality control rep who's going to report to their QCM. The QCM will notify the superintendent if there and the government inspector if there's any deficiencies as soon as they become apparent. The QCM, and then that was all quality control. But then how do you manage and maintain it? They say the QCM will establish a trend analysis file for each subcontractor. That's what they mean by manage and maintain. You have a file going on, you're checking it all the time, and anytime something happens, that documents get added to it. That's managing and maintaining. So that was a pretty good answer there. Pretty specific on how they're going to do it. All right. So once you submit everything, make sure you keep a copy. So this one included an electronic submission as well as a hand delivered one. So if you're doing the hand delivered one, make sure you have a copy that you keep for yourself and just have them stamp it so that it's just proof that it went through. And then follow up, but have a little patience. The more complex the solicitation. So in this case, this was for waste removal, debris clearing at many locations on different bases in Guam and other islands as well. I would say we wait at least 30 days before asking them, okay, has anybody won this yet? So I know a little bit weight like that. If it's something simple like oh, you're just buying 50 chairs and 50 desks or something like that, you could probably ask them in a couple days, hey, anybody win this thing? But this one, you probably want to wait a little bit. Don't call them every day. Don't email them every day. Hey, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? That will get a little annoying. So have some patience when you're following up. Now, again, you can request a debrief. This is where I skipped ahead a little bit earlier, but if you want a debrief, you do need to request it, and that's usually within 3 days after award. That's from the FAR 15.506. And at the debriefing, they're going to tell you the evaluations of your proposal, all the weaknesses and strengths. They're going to tell you your evaluated cost price and your rating. So where you rank. So if there were 10 proposals, are you number two? Are you number three? Are you number 10? Whatever it is, and then why they gave the award to whoever they awarded it to. Okay. And they'll answer some questions, but if you're going to start asking specific questions about another competitor's proposal or something like that, they're not going to answer those questions. So, but let me just show you an actual debrief here. So this was for a hub zone MAC. So this was for a hub zone multiple award construction contract. And this person was unsuccessful. Did not get on the MAC. And so they gave them, the strengths and weaknesses. So um, one of the strengths, the company knew the technical approach. They knew construction, and the government could see that from the way they wrote their management plan. But there was a weakness that they didn't describe any quality control procedures for the project, and they didn't really note the structure, the coordination the design and construction teams. In construction, there's always a design team and a construction team, and there has to be some coordination between them. So, so part of the weakness is, again, they didn't do that, and they didn't describe any quality control. There's no deficiencies, but that was a significant weakness is that there was no quality control in there. I don't have it here, but I think one of the other weaknesses they had was they submitted a list, their experience and their past performance as well. But I think the requirement on this was the minimum project dollar value was $1 million, and the biggest project they had ever done was 800,000. So they submitted that, and they said that wasn't relevant. So it wasn't because the minimum they were looking for was $1 million. So that was another thing they got dinged on as a weakness. Okay. But this is what kind of this was quite a while ago, more than 10 years ago already, so it might be a little different, but this is kind of what you'll get at a debriefing. They'll sit down with you at a PowerPoint and show you, okay, here's your strengths and weaknesses. Okay. So some of the common mistakes, already mentioned some of these, but failure to read is probably the biggest one. Once you feel like, yes, this is a go, we can do this. We've done our quick analysis. Read everything because there might be something that that you didn't see during your quick analysis. So, fail to understand the customer needs, right? Even though they tell you exactly what they want, some people just when they respond, they don't put in the details. So they just kind of parrot back what was said in the solicitation. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure your response shows that you understand what the customer wants. And so if there is an ambiguity or something, ask the question, right? Do that RFI form and ask the question. Failure to provide the requested information, submit relevant past performance, that happens quite a bit. Unorganized, yeah, those are the common mistakes. All right, so in summary here, make sure you do a quick analysis. I'm probably going to update that. 30 minutes is probably way too quick. Probably an hour to 2 hours. Go through a no bid checklist, set up your response team, assign the duties, gather all your data and documents, and then use the evaluation factors to write your response. And then win or lose, request that debrief. Some people, like I said, say, "Oh, I won. I don't need a debrief. My proposal was good enough." Yeah, but it's possible to still have weaknesses and win. So make sure you want to know what those weaknesses are for the next time so you can get rid of those and have an even stronger proposal. All right, so I'm going to stop the share and open up for any questions. Anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself and ask a question if you want. Did I knock everyone out? All right, well, if there are no questions, I don't think we have our new schedule out yet, do we?
Not yet.
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll be posting on our website our new schedule of webinars. So I don't have anything new for next week to let you know about yet, but we will have something next week at 10 a.m. Thursday. So join us then and just look on our website to see what that is. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Boris.
Thanks, Rob.